I'm Kate Livy, the Director of Education and the Associate Curator here at the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. I'd like to welcome you to another installment of Chesapeake Treasure, a feature here on Facebook where we explore one of the 68,000 objects in our collection. So today we are inside of one of the most iconic elements of our collection, the Hooper Strait Lighthouse. This structure was not originally here in St. Michael's. In fact, like most lighthouses, it was out in the middle of the bay. And here in the lighthouse, we have this diagram that shows where all the locations of those 71 lighthouses used to be throughout the Chesapeake, helping people navigate. Now, unlike sort of tower-style lighthouses like you might see in New England or the Outer Banks, the Chesapeake lighthouses were much shorter, and they were built out over the water to keep people away not from rocky coastlines, but from sandbars. So these shoals were just as dangerous as rocky coastlines, and many shipwrecks happened until the Lighthouse Commission was able to create these 71 lighthouses in the 19th century. So a lot of these lighthouses that you can see photographed here were built to replace light ships. These were sort of temporary vessels that were there with a light on board to warn people away from shoals. These much more formal lighthouses allowed lighthouse keepers to live inside and work inside these lighthouses to keep the lamps lit and to keep the fog bells going. Now, the Hooper Strait Lighthouse was originally built in 1867, but the one that we're in today is not that original lighthouse. And that's because there's a really interesting story about what happened to the first lighthouse and why this was a replacement. In the winter of 1877, there were 2 lighthouse keepers here on duty. And that winter was a very cold, hard winter, and the bay actually froze up solid. Now that's a problem for lighthouses like these cottage-style screw-pile lighthouses that have these sort of, and you can see in the photos here, thin, spindly little legs. Every time the tide would rise and fall, that ice would go up and down, helping to pull those screws up and out. Now the other problem that happened in that winter was as the ice started to break up, you had these big ice floes starting to move down the bay, just slamming up against the lighthouse relentlessly. Now, to help tell that story of that harrowing winter here in the lighthouse, we have this logbook. And if you'll follow me, I'll give you a little sneak peek into one of the objects in our collection that tells that story. So as we move into the office, we have here a logbook, and this was where the Hooper Strait Lighthouse keepers would write down the conditions every day that they were experiencing in the lighthouse. And so 1912 is a great example of that 1877 winter environment. You can see here they wrote, "Very heavy ice running, house shaking very bad, can't stand on your feet." A few days later, "Can't keep lamp lit, 9 p.m. light burning all right." And then for days you see house shaking very bad, streets still full of drift ice, very heavy ice running, ice heavy. So in 1877, what happened to the lighthouse was those conditions served to actually sever the legs of the lighthouse, and it actually started to move down the bay with the 2 lighthouse keepers in it. Now, of course, there's no telephone. They can't call for rescue. The people on land, their relatives, their friends and family can see that the light has gone out in the lighthouse and they know that something's wrong. Meanwhile, back in the lighthouse, it starts to move away. The lighthouse keepers manage to lower the lifeboat on the davits outside down to this cold, icy water, and they're scrambling over ice. They're paddling, trying to get to an island, trying to get to land. They are on the ice for 24 hours before they actually make it to a nearby island where they are able to be saved, to warm back up, although they did suffer, as you can imagine, frostbite and exposure. So in 1879, they rebuilt the lighthouse, and guess what? The head lighthouse keeper, Thomas Cornwell, signed back on. So if you think that the idea of sacrificing some of your workplace happiness for a pension is new, you are wrong. Retirement has always been important. So hopefully you learned a little bit something new today about our lighthouse. Again, reconstructed in 1879 and then moved here in the 1960s to St. Michael's as the icon of the Chesapeake that it is today. Thank you so much for joining me on another installment of Chesapeake Treasure here on Facebook. Check back in with us next Thursday for another object and another story, something cool in our collections that we'll share with you here on Facebook. Thanks so much and have a great afternoon.